a couple and just, someone might have just thought, oh, we can, because everything else was to take, but not them. So if anyone knows of someone that has a couple magnets, that would be a good thing. So, all right, well, let's pray and we will begin. Our precious Lord, we thank you for a beautiful evening. I thank you for each person here tonight. Thank you for the presentations that we're going to enjoy tonight, and we pray that you will just bless this time together, and thank you for all the good things that we enjoy. We just look to you and ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. All right, well, Dennis is going to come and share here on the quality drinking water, and Mark is going to get him all mic'd up.
Excuse me. See if it hit the screen. Okay. You said you couldn't, remember?
Oh, that's right.
He's got that.
But thank you anyway, Joey. Okay, no falling asleep. Water, water everywhere, but not a drop to drink. And that is not uncommon in a lot of places. Okay, so first off, nothing that we're going to be talking about tonight, at least on my part, is going to be tied to the grid. So it eliminates anything that's using power to produce clear water. You can store water, you can catch water, you can haul water, and you can even, believe it or not, collect it from thin air. How much water do you need? Right now, according to one study, an average adult person presently uses some 75 to 100 gallons of water a day. The Red Cross says at a minimum you need 1 gallon a day. And I've also seen by FEMA says 2 gallons a day. Remember, it's a minimum. I've also seen 14 gallons. And don't forget about any animals that you have under your care, because you got to get them water too. So granted, they don't need as clean a water as you and I do, but they still like water. If you are storing water and plan to use powdered milk, coffee, powdered drinks, dry mixes, dehydrated or freeze-dried foods, you got to take that in consideration, the amount of water you're going to need to have on hand. And then they tell you you need 14 days worth of that water. So let's take the 2 gallons per person a day. That's 14 gallons, or makes 28 for the 14 days they expect you to have it. And again, that's the minimum. It is also suggested that you do not take water from, regardless how you process it, do not take water from swimming pools or water beds unless you're using it to flush the toilet. You can store water by purchasing it from grocery stores, big box stores, or whatever, in the small gallon or less sizes. It is expected that you could keep them for 2 to 3 years as the plastic starts to deteriorate. And I can tell you it's happened to us where it deteriorates. So you can purchase food grade barrels as well as smaller and larger vessels and use those for water storage. I've seen where barrels are even stacked 2 and 3 high to hold the water. Regardless of the type of container you're using, it should be a food grade safe and stored in a cool, dark area. If you are planning to store for an extended period of time, like 2 years or more, you should add 8 drops of good unscented bleach water with a level of 5.5 to 8.5 of sodium hypochlorite for each gallon of good tap water. Let it stand for 20 minutes. And if it still smells like bleach, it's good enough to store. I have read numerous articles that suggest that you replace the water every 2 or 3 years. And I've also seen where people have it 10 years or more. I like to think of it more like food, rotate it. Milk jugs are not suggested for use. Not suggested for use. Okay, how about catched water? You have water stored in your home already, but first things first. If you are on city water and their water, you lose water pressure, and it's happened in the city of Hayward one time that I know of, and that was when the hotel burnt and all the water, the towers were dry, and they'd sucked all the water out of Shoes Pond, etc. That the pressure drops, and if the pressure drops, it can actually pull water from your house. So what you want to do is shut the valve off on the incoming side of your water meter so it doesn't suck the water out, or where water can come in that is contaminated in one way or another. Okay, and basically what you're doing is putting in a check valve so that the water will not flow backwards. And then at the same time, you have to be able to drain water out of there. So you have to have a valving system on the other side of the meter that allows you to get water drained out of your system. And if you had to drain the house down, if it was because you're not going to be staying there. Okay, the first thing I would do is suggest you to do is turn off the power. Turn off the power to your water heaters. Turn off the gas to your water heater so that you don't end up when the power comes back on and you've drained water out of the system, you're going to burn out your elements. So you don't want to be doing that. So hopefully your water comes back on. The most obvious one, of course, as we just said, is the hot water heater. To get the water out of the hot water heater, first, if you're on city water, you already don't have any water coming in. If you're on well water, now you've got to make sure your pressure tank is down before you start draining from your tank, from your hot water heater, etc. Because what you're going to do is go to the highest faucet in the house, turn it on so that you can, we're talking the hot water heater now, turn that on, but that's after all the water it doesn't flow anymore. Then you can go down to your hot water heater and drain off from your hot water heater, collect water that way. And then the same thing with the cold water. You open up that valve and it'll drain back down to where that valve is at the water meter so that you can get that water out. So there's quite a bit of water stored in your house. And, and that's all drinkable. And of course, then you also have the toilet tank. And you say, I don't want to use the toilet tank. If you keep it clean, I mean, it's drinkable. Fido drinks it. But obviously, you're going to want to flush your toilet anyway, so you can go ahead and use it for that. And the other thing to remember is you can use any filtered water, and I mean debris filtered water, for flushing your toilet. So it doesn't have to be water that's clear. It's got to be water that, say you run it through, pour it through a t-shirt or a towel before you put it into your tank. You don't want to be plugging your toilet. You don't want to be stopping the valve from sealing. So that's what I mean by filtering at this point. Not filtering as if and purifying as if you're going to be drinking it, which we'll get to here in a little bit. Just pour the filtered non-debris water into the tank so that you can use it as you would normally operate the tank, rather than pouring the water into the bowl to flush it out. It just let it run normally. If you have a transfer or lift pump to move sewage from your home to your septic tank, or in some cases even in the city where you have a pumping station to lift the water up into the city sewer system, obviously you need to have power. If there's no power, that means you cannot transfer that product up into the city sewer. So obviously you got to think thoughtfully and carefully so that you don't waste the space in your transfer tank. Otherwise, you got a plan B. Hopefully you do have a plan B. But you can catch rainwater. That again should be filtered and purified before drinking, human drinking. As it ran through the roof, came off the roof, and then it's also in the barrel, in the gutters, and those are contaminated. So if you're getting water that way, make sure that you purify it. Yes, you can melt snow. Obviously, it takes a lot of snow to make a glass of water. So it's not as easy as it sounds. We catch enough rainwater to take care of our animals just in coming off of our roofs at the barn and at the greenhouses. So we can water both the greenhouses and all of our animals with the water that we collect spring, summer, and fall. We never have to pump water for them. Okay, moving on to other sources. There are numerous hand-operated well pumps as well as solar pumps available for both shallow wells and driven wells. And I'm going to refer to this quite often. It's Layman's Catalog. This is from Kidron, Ohio. I'm not telling you to buy from there, but it tells you a lot about the products. They've got pumps and they've got all kinds of equipment that we're going to be talking about. And it's a good source to look at least go online and see what they have that might interest you. The biggest problem is no matter what system you plan to do or however you want to do this, you have to have the materials on hand before they're needed. And in some cases, they have to be in place before they're needed, like the check valve or the valving system down in the basement for your hot water heater and your city water. You've got to have that stuff all set up, ready to go. A lot of the pumps in the well, or for the wells that are listed in this catalog, you can actually put in your well now because it doesn't interfere with your normal well operation. And even Gary and I one time did one of his wells with it was a shallow well, and we put a hand pump on the system so that if he lost power and couldn't use his well, just start pumping. He got water. It was a shallow well. That makes a difference. Yep. Oh yeah. Yeah, you're right. Okay, there again, Layman's has everything you need to accomplish that, from the well to the fittings, et cetera, et cetera. That's not to say you can't buy them locally, because you can. You can buy them many places. I've never seen the well pumps that they have, but otherwise they do. Okay, so if the well has been contaminated, and that happens with flooding, if your well becomes contaminated, if you have your well in your basement and it becomes contaminated, now all that water has to be treated as if it is no longer potable, drinkable water for you and I. Okay. Open water. We are blessed, obviously, in this area with open water. Water can be retrieved from the rivers, streams, lakes, etc., but it needs to be filtered. There's a lot of nasties in our water. And purified. Now we're not talking just filter now. Now we're talking it's got to be purified before it can be used for potable, safe water. How do you make that water safe? Well, there's a number of ways. First one, I don't like this one. I've done this once when I was in Boy Scouts, and I'm going to tell you what tastes terrible. You can use 2% iodine. And that's the one that I was like, no, not for me. So you can use 2% iodine, water purification tablets, unscented bleach, boiling, filters, even solar, among others. All procedures, again, are suggested to be done with room temperature water. It just works better. And remember, again, all these systems are grid free, nothing to do with the grid. And again, remember, before you try to purify the water, you should filter that water through cloth like a t-shirt material or like a sheet material. That's going to take away so many of the moving things that you can see with your eyes. It'll be gone, because otherwise it's just going to make it harder to get good, clean water. You can even use coffee filters. That will eliminate most of the debris that you can see. Let's start with the iodine. 2% iodine is typically available at drugstores. Using 2% iodine, you put 20 drops per gallon of water. And you can up to double that if the water is cloudy. That's 40 drops of iodine in that. Mix well and let stand for at least 30 minutes, and then pour from one container to another clean container a few times to improve the taste. And that's going to be with all of the times when you're doing a job like that. Get some oxygen back into that water. It's going to taste better. Otherwise, it tastes flat. It is best to have at least 2 or more vessels so that one can be in the process while you're consuming the other one. Warning, do not use this method if you or others have a thyroid problem, are allergic to eating shrimp, or if one is pregnant. Water purification tablets are typically available at sporting goods stores or where camping and hiking supplies are sold, and sometimes at drugstores, and of course, layman's. Follow directions with the package, as all are not the same. Abide by what they tell you to do, and it is very important. It is best also here to have more than one vessel so that you can drink out of one and have the other second one in the process. My mother used to send me packs of lime Kool-Aid and then no sugar, just lime Kool-Aid. And I would put a couple of pinches in each canteen that I carried. I carried up to 4 to make it taste better because you're going to do some pretty dirty water sometimes. Actually, with any chemical process, adding a little flavor to it makes a huge difference. When using it in a canteen, you leave the cap slightly loose so that it can breathe a little bit while it is processing. There again, that's why you want to have more than one. That is a very common usage in the military of the past, at least. Okay, the next one, bleach. In using bleach, it must be unscented. Unscented. And again, with the 5.5 to the 8.25 level of sodium hypochlorite. Once bleach is open, it loses its strength. It is not suggested to use bleach that's older than 12 months old. It is available, obviously, at grocery stores, hardware stores, home centers, etc. But remember, unscented. Using the bleach method, add 8 drops or a quarter teaspoon per gallon of water. And again, double that if it's cloudy water. Mix well and let sit for 30 minutes. Smell it. If it doesn't smell bleachy, do it again. Okay? If it doesn't smell bleachy, do it again. The longer wait is always better. And again, pour it back and forth. This is the one that I first learned, and I learned it in Boy Scouts, was using the boiling method. And that's the simplest one for me, is the boiling method. Use the boiling method. You start with one clean container with filtered water, again, always filtered water. And you bring the water to a rolling boil, 7 to 10 minutes. I'd shoot for the 10 minutes. And then if you have a second clean container, then you can pour it back and forth again to get the oxygen back in it. It's going to taste better. And in my Boy Scout days, they would have us do that, even though the water we had was perfectly drinkable, but it was just to do it, so we knew how to do it. And I have to say, no matter what system you want to try, the thing to do is practice, do it. Because once you do it a few times, you're familiar with it, then you don't panic. Because like with anything else, it's just a lot easier if you've already done it a few times. Okay. Okay, another thing to remember so far, none of what we've talked about will remove the chemicals or minerals from the water. So if you're concerned about the chemicals in the water or the minerals, you have to go to a different process. How about solar? This is a little expensive, but it can be done. It's expensive, so it's not something that most people are going to want to do. And believe it or not, they now have a solar unit that can pull between 8 and 20, 16.9 ounce bottles of water out of thin air. The amount depends on the climate you're in, and the solar unit itself runs about $4,000 plus shipping and installation fees. And I have a place to get it if you're interested. It's called zeromasswater.com. You can distill water to remove chemicals and minerals. And that's where you heat one container, turns to steam, goes across, lands in the other container where it condenses. And again, you can buy the whole kit right here to do that. And again, that's about $500. But now you've got good, clean, distilled water, and the chemicals and minerals for the most part have been removed. Okay. Now we're going to go to where you're going to purify, filtering and purify. And again, it's non-electric. There's nothing, no grid tied. A filtering system kind of like a Berkeley, that's just a brand name. And again, that among many others are in this catalog, can purify and remove chemicals and minerals. It comes in many sizes and it's available in many places. I've seen it like up at Duluth Pack. I've seen some of them, and I've seen them, of course, in Layman's catalog and whatnot. And they're all different, and they all do not take out the same chemicals and minerals. They do not filter the same thing. So you have to look at what you're trying to filter out and match it with what's available. High-end sporting goods stores and Layman's typically have an assortment of filter systems, including the small units designed for backpackers and the like. Now, with those units, again, they're just a stationary unit that you pour the water into after it's filtered, because it's really going to shorten the lifespan of your filters if you don't do that. You pour it into the container, it will drip through the filter system and into the bottom vessel, and now you've got good drinking water. So it's really a very simple thing to use. And I think there's one my son used to like a lot, and that was the straw. And it's the same thing. And that is, it was capable of purifying up to 264 gallons of safe drinking water. And again, use clean water when he was out fishing. Don't be taking it from the shore. Clean water, you can just suck it in and drink it. I mean, that really does a good job. But it's called a Life Straw, or at least that's one brand name for it. And again, they're available in that catalog. And each one of these filters, if you look at the pictures, you know, some are this big, some are this big. So it depends on the volume that you need for your family or whatever. How much water do you need, and what you want to eliminate? You've got to look that through. And Layman actually used to have a chart online that you could look at to compare the different, like the Berkeley system. They had like 7 or 8 Berkeley ones, and you could take a look at the size. It would tell you how many gallons, it would tell you how long it would take, and what it would eliminate. Okay. We talked about the filters. And again, the filters will not hold up if you do not filter out as much debris as possible. If I was going to use any of these suggestions I have talked about, and I use these things, I'm going to tell you the ones I use. Number 1, a hand pump or on an existing well with any parts necessary to repair it, like the leathers and so forth on a hand pump. One contact, again, Layman's. They have numerous hand pumps for shallow wells, as well as numerous hand pumps for deep wells up to 200 feet. Around this area, there's very few that are going to be at 200 feet. Okay. Number 2, the Berkeley water system. And make sure you have extra filters. And they will filter quite a bit of water. We're talking in the thousands of gallons, so before they need to be replaced. So first, the hand pump, second, the Berkeley, and third, the boiling. Why the boiling? Almost everybody has access to the vessels necessary to do that, along with matches to start a fire, hopefully, or whatever, to get it cooking. And again, I've mentioned Layman's many times. It's just because it's a good place to start, and you could get an idea what's out there. And from that point, you go where you want. I mean, there's many of other places to buy it, of course. But I would have to say the most important thing, get whatever it is you think you're going to need to do that, because it's impossible to do it when it's too late. It is way too late to go shopping. Like I was told once before, remember, it wasn't raining before Noah started building his ark. So you don't think it can happen here, huh? Northwoods Beach lost power for over a week. And that was when I first moved here some 40 some years ago. And everybody there has a well. They don't have pressured water. Nobody's got anything but a well. So they were out of water for that period of time. And so people were taking a lot of water out of Grindstone, I know, and trying to get it purified. Ashland lost natural gas the winter of 93, 94 for 9 days. And about 2006, on an area along Smith Lake, out by where I'm at, again, they lost power for a week when a big storm came through. Hayward lost natural gas when it was 23 below out. I mean, things happen. And as we said, the hotel, when it caught fire, the city lost water. So all I'm saying is be a good scout, be prepared. Thank you. Yeah, they have a flyer that they send out that doesn't. They used to send one of these anytime you bought something, but now you have to order it. Yeah, you have to order, but you can go online. They got everything online. No, no. But think about your chickens, huh? Think about your chickens. Yeah, we filter our water that we do feed the animals with because we don't want to plug the spigot. So we have a filter that catches the debris, not that takes out everything that's there, just the big stuff, because I want to be able to turn the spigot on and have the water come out. So are there any other questions anywhere? Arnold?
Yeah. Rumor control, okay? I was told you can't put a shallow well in it.
Well, I've never heard that. That's news to me. You can't have it in your basement.
There was something about they don't think it's purified enough.
Yeah, there's so many of them.
I know, but that news.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that's not true. I've not heard that, but
it might be a local ordinance in the city. In my knowledge, you can't put in a new well because water. Must be up an existing one.
in Hayward here, you can get permission to put in a well, but you can't use it for drinking, and you can use like water in your yard or something. Like right there on Nyman Avenue, the Saban there uses it all the time. He's got one, but
You know how deep Bando's well is?
how deep's your well?
Yeah. I didn't see what our well.
How deep is it?
Mine was over 300.
Really?
And we're only a few miles apart.
300 feet up here. Wow.
300. He must have went through a few tables. Because Fogels was the same way.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
He was orange.
Did you say if it's over 200 feet, a hand pump won't work?
No, I didn't say that. I said I've seen them in here at 200 feet.
Okay.
That doesn't mean they're not available. You know, it's obviously if you're using a hand pump at 200 feet deep, you're doing a lot of this. Because
how many minutes before you get any water?
well, mine is 80 feet. The one I do with and it takes 3 pumps.
But the pipes are.
Yep. Yeah, just because the well is 80 feet doesn't mean the water is 80 feet down. The water could be up to 50 feet.
I mean, you go to campgrounds, they'll take 15.
Yeah, no.
Campground, a lot of those, they probably don't have to check it out at the time. Or a huge spot right there.
Ours are 3 or 4 pumps and we got water.
What they used to do in, well, they would drill a hole in the pipe so it would drain down so they didn't worry about it freezing. They didn't want it full of water all the way.
That's how mine's set up. It's got a weep hole in it. So the water drains back down. But the water isn't 80 feet down. The water is like 50 feet down. But we're at, I'm sorry.
I'm just curious, what pump you use, and is it frost proof?
I would have to say I don't know what the name on it is, but it's in this catalog because this is where I bought it. But when you say frost-proof, see, mine has a weep hole in it, so the water goes back down. It doesn't stay in the upper part of the, so it's never where it's frozen. I've never had a problem. We've had, how long have we had the well? 20 years? Yeah, 20 years at least. I've used it many times in the winter. Yep. Ours are blue, and if they're in the shade, and the two of them are out of the sun completely because the sun is what's doing that. Because I've seen, believe it or not, algae this tall. Looks like, I don't know if you know what mother-in-law's tongue is, the plant with the wide leaf. I've seen that growing in a transfer tank one time, and all it was water. But yeah, so it can do that. But being opaque like that, not clear, and also in the shade and out of the sun, we've never had an issue. Any other questions?
Anybody's interested in boats?
Yep.
Food grade, 330 gallon boats.
Wire cage on
Yep. Down by Ladysmith. Did anybody hear that? If they were looking for those big containers with the steel cage around them, down by Ladysmith for $80. Yeah. I know mine held soy sauce. Anybody else? Thank you.